When I was a kid, anytime I was having a dream where I was peeing in the dream, I knew that meant I was probably peeing the bed.
You knew that in the dream?
If I'm in the dream peeing, my brain starts to wake up and go, oh, no. You're probably peeing in real life.
Yeah,
that's pretty normal.
And then
now in 2020, watching Contagion, that's what it was like. You turn off the movie and you're like, oh, it's real.
yeah,
There's a virus taking over the world outside.
that's a really good analogy.
I got an email while I was sitting here on my phone waiting for the show to start saying that my daughter's school is canceled, and I got another one saying my son's school is canceled. My badminton chat, all it's talking about is how many people are dying.
Oh my goodness.
Also,
Yeah.
someone's cat that's cute.
Hey, wait a second. Is that Linus?
That's not David's voice.
That's not David at all.
It's Linus in a surgical mask.
All right. I'll take this off.
It's a little muffled.
It turns out that COVID-19 is a great way to remember whose email you should unsubscribe to.
Yeah. It's like it's a reminder of how many people have my email.
Tim Hortons, I don't need to hear from you. Goodbye.
Every company feels the need to send an email about COVID-19. It's like, don't worry, we here at Tim Hortons will make sure we order. It's like, I haven't been to Tim Hortons in months.
years.
Yeah.
Who goes to Tim Hortons anymore? Their donuts suck now.
Whoa.
What do you mean, whoa?
I mean,
Nothing.
no.
They're not even baked fresh in store. It's terrible.
Well, who else has donuts?
Dude,
It
what are you
doesn't matter.
talking
Just
about?
don't eat donuts.
The donut game has gone like sky high in the last couple of years.
Well, yeah, in Vancouver.
They're not calorie worthy.
I can't find a
Agreed.
decent donut place because of this dang COVID-19. They've taken all the donuts.
All right, we should probably talk about the movie.
We're covering Contagion because it's going crazy viral right now.
Hey.
I looked at
Careful.
Google Trends, and everyone cared more about this movie. There was more searches about this movie than any movie coming out this week, including A Quiet Place 2. Like, by an order of magnitude, this is the movie trending on Netflix, and we're covering it.
Yeah, and there's no better time. It was interesting. I saw people talking about wanting to see Contagion, but like it's not available very many places in the States on streaming sites. But it's like on Netflix up here. So
In Canada.
yeah.
So, Linus, what are you going to give this movie out of 10?
I'm giving it a 5.
What does
Wow.
What does a 5 mean on your scale?
That's a strong 5.
A 5 means that's an average movie. So my scale is centered on 5, not on 0. I don't have negative ratings.
Wait, if a
what?
movie's bad, what is it for you? Like 4 and under 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the same as mine. So.
Yeah, I think that's how all of our scales work.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I'm new to this.
You're a normal person. Don't worry.
What's your
I wouldn't go
slogan?
that far. My slogan is gutsy movie, kills off A-list actor within the first 10 minutes, and then is entirely predictable from then on out.
Spoiler alert.
I mean, it has been out since 2011, to be fair.
Whatever. What spoiler? What are you talking
gonna be-
about?
It's a
Well, no,
spoiler.
that's
it's
not a
spoiler.
spoiler.
It's a spoiler. Well,
It's a spoiler podcast.
Dead Gwyneth Paltrow is like featured
Whoa!
pretty prominently in
Linus!
promotional imagery for the movie.
come on.
Okay? I don't want to hear about
Now
it.
some people are going to be, they're like, I don't even want to see the movie now. I thought Gwyneth Paltrow was the star.
Well, she is a star of the movie.
That doesn't mean that she's not in it after the 10-minute mark.
yeah,
She is.
exactly.
Yeah, sort of.
Riley, your score, please.
All right, my score was well, yeah.
Your score right now is being affected by Linus' score,
No,
isn't it?
it is. But, okay, I'm going to stick with it. It's a 6. 6 out of 10.
It's not a 6.
And my slogan is, this movie was infected with too many characters.
Okay.
I really want to talk about that later.
Yeah.
I'm giving this movie, I guess, a 7, maybe even a 7.5, given the current watching.
What?
The watching environment.
No.
Watching it, given the current environment, was sweet.
Well,
Maybe you guys weren't as stoned as I was, but I was like into this movie.
okay. That's definitely going to affect the quality of the movie.
Yeah.
I watched it again last night straight, and it was not as good, but
Right.
I'm still giving it a 7.
Dang, dude.
You can't just be
Yeah,
like,
that's-
look, I was in a mind altered
Altered-
state, and it seemed pretty sweet.
It was sweet.
Yeah, but you could just as easily be watching, like, the original Dark Crystal and just be like, oh, yeah, this is so cool.
this is so cool.
That is so not true, and neither of you guys smoke weed, so your opinions are invalid.
Wow.
That's
Completely
not
invalid.
It's not an opinion.
What are you talking about? You've never been
Okay,
high.
If
Well,
you're
it's
in a
fair.
mind-altered state, you can't evaluate something objectively.
Yeah, well, none of it, but nobody can evaluate anything
Exactly.
objectively, so that's his argument.
Watching a movie is a subjective experience. I had a great time watching this movie.
To be fair, you watched it both in a mind-altered state and sober, so
Yeah.
Okay.
so that's fair.
I want to kick
I still
this
like
off with this. I don't usually go looking for the racial undertones, But did anyone else notice that the Chinese characters all just spread disease and were terrorists?
Yeah.
Before we get into that, this podcast is brought to you by PIA. Private Internet Access, VPN. It helps you hide your true IP address so you can bypass geo restrictions and censorship. You can connect up to 5 devices at once, and it includes an internet kill switch if your VPN gets disconnected involuntarily. PIA is available for Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, and even as a Chrome extension, so check it out at lmg.gg/carpoolpia. One thing though, Linus.
Yes.
Counterpoint to that is it's actually kind of not as bad as in real life with this virus. Because in the movie, Linus, turn your phone off. In the movie, the virus is spread just from a Westerner eating at a restaurant.
Right.
A normal, like a casino restaurant.
Yeah, a dirty cook who doesn't wash his hands and just wipes pig blood all over himself.
Which is normally fine.
But...
No.
Yeah.
No.
No. But combine that fact with the fact that patient 0, or the index patient in this movie, is a Westerner, and you end up with, this disease. It came from China, but it's spreading in the U.S. Whereas in real life with the coronavirus, it came from China. It came from a practice that Westerners don't do, eating, in their minds, rando foods, like from rando wild animals in these disgusting markets. And then it's because when a virus jumps from animals to humans, it doesn't just spread wildly in humans after that. It has to adapt, and it goes from animal to human and back probably a number of times. So the outbreak started in China in real life, and that meant that in the West, there was stigma where it's like, if you're Chinese, you probably have the virus. It was actually worse in real life.
You're talking about the current virus we're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just saying the movie probably wasn't helpful in that context if people are going and watching this movie and going like, oh, well, look at this. All the viruses come from China.
Well, to be fair,
the last few
a lot of
ones
them
have originated.
Come from the wet markets where they keep live animals and stuff, and they're like non-regulated animals and whatnot. A lot of them do come from there. But
China's not the only country with wet markets.
True.
Just saying.
But I think there have been a lot where they traced back to these like specific wet markets in China. But regardless, to your point, I feel like there could have been more in this movie talking about that kind of thing, like talking about maybe a racist backlash.
There's no stigma mentioned in this movie.
It's just like it comes from China, and that's like completely besides the point of the whole movie. Like I feel like, and that's maybe a problem that I had with the movie in general, is that it didn't quite go to the places I wanted it to go. Like it takes a very kind of detached viewpoint of the whole thing.
It didn't really go anywhere. Like that's the thing, is they kept going to all these locations around the world and flashing these little like population things at the bottom of the screen. And it felt like by having all these different storylines and all these characters whose arcs ultimately don't really go anywhere, the goal was to make it seem like a really broad and overwhelming and terrifying infection. But what it ultimately ended up doing was making me just have very little attachment to any of the characters.
Mm-hmm. And it was a huge disappointment for me. I feel like I wrote down after I saw this movie, I was like, because I think I've seen this movie before, but like, you know, it came out in
so forgettable.
Well, it came out in 2011. I think I did. I might have seen like half of it. Maybe it was on TV. Or
maybe
something.
You saw Outbreak from the 90s.
I saw about 15 minutes of it over the shoulder of someone else on a plane. It was actually the scene where the doctor, I forget her name, but she dies. I had seen that
the Kate
part.
Winslet character.
Yeah, Kate Winslet.
Oh, wait a second. We never did our synopsis.
Oh, whoopsies. Okay, here's what happens, guys. Soon after her return from a business trip to Hong Kong, Beth Emhoff, Gwyneth Paltrow, dies from an unknown virus. Her young son dies later the same day, making it a really shitty time to be Matt Damon, her husband, who is immune. If it's any
He's a mute.
He's a mute. If it's any consolation,
she
appears...
cheated on him.
Oh, it's right there.
Oh, that's not a consolation.
You say immune in this. If it's any consolation, he appears to be immune to the virus, and his teenage daughter is still alive. Several days pass before anyone realizes the extent or gravity of this new infection. Doctors from the CDC and WHO must identify the type of virus in question, trace its spread to patient 0, and find a means of combating it. As the contagion spreads to millions of people worldwide, social order begins to break down as people panic, until an intrepid scientist, Dr. Hextall, creates an experimental vaccine, ... The character arc's not going anywhere is my main complaint with this movie.
Yeah, like what happened to that hostage? She's just completely ignored.
Marion Cotillard?
2/3 of the movie. And then at the end, she just walks off in the airport and we never find out where she went.
Right.
Presumably she's going back to tell the guys that kidnapped her that because she's got, Stockholm syndrome or whatever. She's going back to tell them that it wasn't a real vaccine, it was a placebo, but then that's never given any closure whatsoever.
Well, maybe
her character gets totally sidelined. Hey, I was like, whoa, Marion Cotillard's in this movie, sick. And then you see her for like 25 minutes and then she's just taken away because she's held hostage so that because she works for the WHO, this village wants to ensure that they get the vaccine first as ransom for her release.
And then the village is just self-isolating anyway. So what did they need a vaccine for?
Fine.
Because they're just in the hillside somewhere or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the big, end of the movie denouement, finale is the petulant daughter, who I thought was the most annoying character in the entire film, including the conspiracy theorist, is like dancing with her boyfriend.
Well, I like that.
She's a teenager. They're whiny. You haven't got to that phase yet.
She didn't bother me that much at all, more than anybody else. But I really thought, rather, you were talking about things that this touched on and things it didn't touch on. I thought the fact that the movie touched on how this virus was like limbo for her childhood. She's just missing her childhood. There's a scene where she's like, summer's gone, and then it's going to be winter again.
Yeah.
And then they close with her having a prom in her living room. I thought that was great.
Now that line stood out to me, but it was the only real work that they had done on developing that idea. So it suffered from the exact same problem as the rest of the movie, where I wasn't really given time to get to know them and to care about them. It was just, I was being told why I should care.
Wait, which line?
The line about spring's gone and then summer's going to be gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I agree that overall, like, this movie touched on a lot of things, but it only touches on these things.
Right.
Like, there's a throwaway line that's like, oh, absenteeism with law enforcement is increasing. And it's like, whoa, that's cool. That totally would happen. Wow. But there could be a whole movie with just that.
Right.
Like,
the movie is essentially like a list of things that might happen during a pandemic. And it's like these little snapshots of potential character arcs, or like snapshots of like actions taken by certain characters within this environment, but it doesn't really come together to like create a cohesive story. And this is, I looked into this while I was like researching this after I saw it, because I was like, is this a weakness of the movie? Like, is this movie not good because it doesn't really follow like one or two core characters and like really set up this arc for them to follow through? But I looked it up, and this is Steven Soderbergh, not Steven Spielberg. Steven Soderbergh.
Yeah, okay, the other Berg.
Yeah. I was waiting for that.
Please, no.
I needed to get that in somewhere. He uses this cinematic technique called hyperlink cinema, and he's done it in a few of his other movies, where he just kind of like takes a wide view and follows like a ton of different characters, but none of them get like super deep.
Yeah, his movies are kind of almost documentary style, like Aaron Brockovich and Traffic, kind of like that too. I guess he also did Oceans 11 and 12, which again have big ensemble casts. Yeah.
Well, it just felt to me like the kind of movie where that didn't work.
Yeah.
It seemed like they probably shot a lot of extra, and then for whatever reason, whether it was because the edit was boring or it was too long, or they were trying to sneak in under a particular rating, for example, like there's that scene. Honestly, I thought the strongest part of the movie was right when that throwaway line you were talking about was with the police absenteeism, when the situation in Chicago is escalating and things are getting out of control and there's garbage all over the streets, and the conspiracy theorist guy who's saying that there's this nonsense drug that's going to fix everything and the CDC is withholding it from people. Meanwhile, he's walking around after claiming to have gotten the virus with a hazmat suit on the streets. Obviously, he was faking it. That whole segment was great. It felt like the stakes were really, really high. And then it kind of comes to this awkward close when Matt Damon's character witnesses gunshots in his neighbor's house and then goes over to investigate the next day. And there's like no bodies or anything. He just goes over and grabs the gun that his neighbor presumably owned because it's mounted to the wall, and then goes back home with it.
And it's like, all right.
Wait a second. Is it like strongly implied that he's going into that house? Because he's just, to me, he was just going to a house, like a neighboring house.
No, I think you might be right. I don't know if they say straight up that. I think you assume that that's the same house.
It looked like the same house. I mean, I don't know. I was watching this in bed at like 2 a.m. because I realized I forgot to watch it. I was on the podcast today. So
talking about that character, the Jude Law kind of conspiracy character. One of the hokiest parts in the whole movie, right at the beginning.
Alan Crumweedy.
That's right. There's a part where he's like accosting this doctor on the way out of the building.
Yeah.
And the doctor's like, "You're not even a real journalist." He's like, "Just because I'm a blogger doesn't mean I'm not a real writer." I was like, whoa.
I have 16 million unique visitors.
That is some 2011 conversation they're having right there.
The blogosphere is all over this. Like,
that was brutal. But that guy, I don't know. I was trying to figure out whether or not you're saying he faked having the virus. But I don't think that's true. There's a scene with him saying that he's sick. He's clearly sweaty and like looks sick.
Yeah.
And he's filming himself saying, "I'm treating myself with this alternative medicine." And then in the end, I guess that alternative medicine isn't real.
Well, and this was the confusing thing about his whole arc, is that he meets with the guy in the park, right? And you're like, wait, who is this guy? Because they don't really lay that out.
Yeah, he's like a hedge fund guy.
Well, later they make it
investor.
clear. They make that clear.
I
but
thought
like,
that was pretty clear.
really?
Yeah.
No, they say it right off the bat.
Yeah.
What if I'm seen hanging out with hedge fund guys or VCs?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, no, I thought he was the best character in the whole movie in terms of making sense from a real life perspective. Everything that he did made sense. What's this guy's motivation? This guy's motivation is to capitalize on the fear, is to pump up this alternative remedy by, talking down the traditional drug institutions that exist and saying, "Oh, they're all about the profit." Well, turns out his alternative remedy is also about profit. Haha, got him. And I also found...
You can't trust influencers.
I found everything he said to be completely within character, whereas with pretty much anyone else, you could look at something they did or said and go, well, that doesn't really make a ton of sense. The fact that he's so smarmy and so confident and gets completely busted and yet walks out because he's got, 12 million other people who are just as crazy as him who post bail for him. I absolutely loved him. And I hated him because he's a jackass.
Right. He's the bad guy.
But I loved it that he got off at the end.
See, I don't even think that I was interested in because he does things that like make sense within the world and within his character or whatever. I just think that he was an actual character. I feel like the rest of the characters are like, oh, we have to do this. So, okay, I'm going to go over and talk to this guy. Okay,
They're more like,
we have to do this. And
they're like devices.
Yeah.
I definitely had the feeling when the movie ended, I was like, who's the protagonist? I guess it was Matt Damon.
Well,
I guess
there isn't really, and I think that's the main weakness of this movie, is that there isn't really, like, you could make an argument for Matt Damon being the protagonist or for Lawrence Fishburne being the protagonist.
It's definitely Matt Damon.
Or Jennifer Ely as well, the woman who came up with the doctor who came up with the vaccine. Like, I feel
she's
like
not shown till way later.
It's Matt Damon.
Well, okay, sure. But I mean, like, we're not even really connected to Matt Damon in like a very strong way, necessarily more so than the other characters.
I don't know, man. The beginning of the movie is pretty strong. His wife and stepson die right away, and then that scene where he's talking to the doctor and the doctor's telling him that his wife is dead, that's a sick scene.
I feel, okay.
That was a great scene. Am I right? Come on.
Yeah.
Yep.
The way that the doctor tells him what happened, and he's just like,
doesn't understand
he's just nodding and it hasn't even hit him.
Yeah, that's cool.
That was great.
Yeah. I feel like we had this conversation in a previous podcast about protagonists, or maybe this was just in the carpool.
In the actual carpool. I think we're talking about Infinity
about
War
how,
or
like,
something.
Technically, you can make an argument for like someone like Matt Damon in this movie being a protagonist because we see him first and we see him last, and we're maybe most emotionally connected to him. But like in terms of the actual arc that his character goes through, it's like it's almost non-existent.
Not really. He's just trying to survive.
Yeah, he's just there, and then finds out his wife was, she cheated on him, and now she's dead, and now it's like, okay, I guess I got to protect my daughter, and then he makes a prom for her, but there's like, what progress does his character make?
Well,
What's
very
the
little.
arc?
That's why I was saying it feels like so much of this movie got cut out. Where's his reaction to her cheating on him? Like, where's the scene where he's going through her camera and finds pictures she took with her BF?
I thought that was coming up. I thought it was going to show up. Well, but then I was like, wait, she's not going to take a picture with her freaking Chicago ex-boyfriend.
The thing is, though, guys, I don't think that we needed to see pictures of that because we were already thinking about it. We're all sitting there, like, and he is too, thinking about her last days.
The reason I would say that we need to see something like that is so that it has an impact on him, and then we can see the emotional impact that it has on him.
We saw a little bit of the emotional impact when the news was broken to him.
Sure, he was sad, but like, what does that mean for his character? And it doesn't translate to any actual motion in the arc. It's just like, oh, that's sad. Okay, we could spend a bit more time on this and talk about what this actually means for his character, but there's too many celebrities in this movie. We gotta switch over to Kate Winslet.
I have a theory about why we don't feel like anybody changed, and the reason is that this movie doesn't really have an Act 1. Act 1 in a movie usually is like, here's the world today. This is how the characters are living today, before the events of the movie take off. And this movie just takes off. The opening scene is like, is the what they call the inciting action, the thing that takes you from the world today to where we're going. That's scene one. Like, hey, there's a disease, and everyone's just reacting from then on.
Right. No, I totally agree. There is no Act 1, partially because there are so many characters to get through. You don't have time to like establish something. Once you establish what normal is for this character, that's a quarter of the movie gone. It's like, oh, whoops, we need to keep moving because we have Gwyneth Paltrow, Matt Damon, Lawrence Fishburne, Jude Law, Marion Cotillard, Kate Winslet, Bryan Cranston.
He felt weird in this movie.
He felt okay. I love Bryan
playing
Cranston.
A military role that literally anybody else could play.
Yeah. Yeah,
useless.
And this was during the height of Breaking Bad fame when this came out.
Right.
When he came on screen, I don't know if it's because he's so famous now or what it is, but as soon as the camera went to him, I was like, what? Like, it just, he stuck out like a sore thumb to me.
And I think it's confusing from like a meta level, because you're watching this movie and you see all these celebrities, and that impacts what you expect of the movie. You're like, oh, this is a celebrity, so that's going to be an important character. This is a celebrity.
That's why I loved how gutsy it was when they killed Gwyneth Paltrow within the first 10 minutes.
And can I just say,
glad to, frankly,
how good she is at dying. I was like, whoa, I didn't know she was such a good actor. Look at her have that seizure. That is a convincing seizure. She's like ugly dying right now.
A lot of the things in this movie were expected to be scientifically accurate, or that was kind of one of the things about this movie is that they consulted with a number of experts about how this would actually play out. I think 3 overall. Larry Brilliant is one of them. He was renowned for his work in eradicating smallpox.
Bloody brilliant.
Lawrence Larry Brilliant. And so I think, and in the critical reception, it got some praise for like introducing terms like R naught. That's the number of people that a infected person is likely to infect.
Yeah, but everyone watching that movie in this climate was like, oh, she's talking about R naught.
Oh yeah, R naught. Fomites. Fomites are like the physical surfaces that you touch, then other people also touch. It's a transmission vector.
You want to talk jargon, buddy? I Googled a lot of stuff.
Okay.
I was so interested in the jargon in this movie.
Yeah.
I loved it. My actual favorite scene in this movie is when the scientist Hextall is talking to Lawrence Fishburne character, showing him a visualization of the virus. This is what it looks like. This is how it attaches with this little receptors. It fits like a key in a lock.
Right.
I loved that scene, and I had to know immediately. I was like, that's got to be a real virus model.
Oh, yeah, you tweeted.
What virus is that? Well, I knew if you Google anything about this movie, you find out that the characteristics of the virus are an amalgam of influenza and something called Nipah virus. And so a lot of the responses I got on Twitter were like, it's Nipah virus. But I couldn't find any evidence of like, well, what is the model they're showing?
Oh.
Is that a Nipah virus model or what is it? The only thing I found was that if you pause it, when they're showing the screen, it does say Nipah virus in one like text on the screen, but it also says the names of other viruses as well on there. So I don't know.
Okay.
I actually wanted to talk about that in general. Things this movie did well, because so far I think we've criticized it a lot, but I really liked the pragmatic urgency of the scene where they're going into this, it looked like an arena of some sort, and she's like, the doctor's like, great job, Kate Winslet's character. She goes, great job. You found us this fantastic place where we can, set up a bunch of beds and do this and do that. Now find me 3 more.
Yeah.
And she didn't mean that in like a rude or, commanding way or anything like that. It was just, this is what we need.
She's probably my favorite character. She was badass.
I thought she was great. I was sort of sad she died, but then only sort of, because I saw her for a grand total of like 7 minutes on screen.
I was sad she died because I thought there was real potential there for like a character arc, because she came in as like kind of the newbie field agent, right? She was like getting advice from Lawrence Fishburne's character, Dr. Cheever, on like how to like remain calm and make sure you get food and like sleep when you have to. And
then it just turned into this totally unnecessary, well, we've got our people out there. We've got to get them back. Oh, no, we can't. And there's that was a horrible scene. Bryan Cranston and Lawrence Fishburne just talking about how they couldn't go get her.
Right.
Really?
Like, okay.
What didn't you like about it?
I thought it just served no purpose.
Well, I think what that scene serves to illustrate is maybe the conflict between like following your personal ethics and wanting to be a good person in a pandemic situation like this, and the fact that like people in power are going to make decisions about how to use resources and stuff. Because the reason that they can't get her off the ground is because the jet that was going to come get her is being rerouted to take a congressman somewhere.
Yeah, I thought they could have done that just as easily, letting our imaginations fill in the gaps. I think they could have just, as they did, kept leaving her there and having her get worse and worse, having him say, we're going to try and get you out of there, ultimately just being completely powerless to do it. And then if we wanted to have the conversation about people in positions of power abusing it, well, I thought the Lawrence Fishburne subplot where he warns his soon-to-be wife to get out of the city was a way better way to do it, and that was in the movie already.
I didn't get what... Okay, maybe this is just me being dumb, but like I didn't get what the big deal about that was. Like he's warning his wife to get out of the city before they make an official pronouncement that everyone should get out of the city. But like, I don't know. Those things take time.
That's because they weren't making a pronouncement to get out of the city. They were making an announcement that it was going to be locked down. So he was trying to get her out before the lockdown, which could have caused it to be spread. That was actually a terrible thing to do.
Right.
That was another subplot that just went nowhere. Well, there's going to be an investigation into your actions. I'll see you at the wedding. What was that?
Well, I get that's one of the kind of casualties of the realism of this movie is that in real life, this kind of stuff happens over large time frames. So it's like, oh, cool, you got the vaccine at the end. Well, you know, it's going to take a long time for society to bounce back. This proceeding, this trial is going to be some months down the road.
Right.
But one of the coolest lines in the movie comes from that scene that you don't like. I liked it when Cranston's character said, we want nobody to know. We can't have anybody knowing until everybody knows. That was awesome.
Huh.
He said it differently. It sounded cooler when he said it.
Well, it's Bryan Cranston, so
I
of course
get that.
it did.
No, the words were different though.
I mean,
whatever.
the effect is transmitted here. That's fine. It was really interesting seeing the timing of us doing this podcast is very interesting because we're in the COVID-19 pandemic here, but specifically I watched it on Sunday night. I finished it on Sunday night, and like today's Tuesday.
Yeah.
Monday, Tuesday is when they're starting all of the actual like lockdowns.
Yep. State of emergency in Alberta and British Columbia as of I think today.
Yep. Canada's border is sealed to all non-Canadian citizens and permanent residents.
Which only serves to remind me of how some of the sequence of events in this movie were totally wrong. Like
are we moving on to what was unrealistic? Because I'm ready. I've got some stuff for that. There was no toilet paper hoarding whatsoever.
Well, this is what I was going to say. He warns his fiance to get out of town, right? He says, go, leave directly now. Do not tell anybody. She breaks both those rules.
Yeah.
She goes to a Whole Foods or
why
something.
is she shopping?
And tells her friend.
When
weird. She's shopping, though, there's already more than 8 million people globally infected.
Yeah.
And there's a montage of all this stuff on the shelves, including hand sanitizer stuff. I'm like, lady... That was gone while it was still in China.
Yeah. We know now that that's unrealistic because, like, what are the cases at now? You know, like, I don't even know where they are.
Globally, like 150,000 or something?
Yeah. And here in Vancouver, where I think there's still, like, there's like 100-something cases altogether.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's hard to keep track of it, but there's definitely been over half a dozen deaths now.
In Canada, not in BC.
No, in BC.
Oh, in BC. All right, fine.
That's new. That's new today.
So
again, it's
but
like,
here we haven't been hit nearly as hard as many other places.
Yes,
and
like Italy.
we can't. There's no groceries. Oh well, okay. There's some groceries, but like you go to buy canned soup or something, you go to buy toilet paper. There's none here, and I was struck by that when I went grocery shopping on the weekend because I was like, oh, we're fine here. Other places are going crazy, but like Canada's okay. It's happening. It's nuts.
The crazy thing about the toilet paper is that there's a Kruger manufacturing facility in New Westminster.
So we're fine.
So literally toilet paper is made here. So if they were to shut down all the boats and all the planes, we would have an abundance of toilet paper. Not the other way
Also,
around.
it doesn't usually give you diarrhea. You shit the same amount. So
Well, I don't understand.
Okay. No.
You know why
being a
people
little
are doing
bit
this?
facetious. Yes. Because if you're going to quarantine yourself and your whole family for 2 weeks, you will presumably want to clean your buttocks while you are doing that.
I have a bidet. This is a non-issue for me. I haven't hoarded anything.
I haven't experienced a toilet paper shortage that much, and I feel like I'm not that diligent about like always being stocked up on toilet paper.
The thing is the perception. If you go and buy any toilet paper now, you just look like a dickhead. Like you got to get the 4-pack, the smallest pack possible.
Yeah.
Just be like, guys, I'm cool. This is just
it's just for me
Yep.
and my dog.
All right, I'd like to go back real quick to talking about the things that we liked about it because we didn't finish that thread. I really loved the cinematography in this movie and the overall kind of like aesthetic direction. The way that the camera lingers on surfaces after people touch them.
The best example of that is the door closing.
I thought the music was overdone
the door
during
closing
those segments.
We'll talk about the music. We'll talk about the music, but the door closing when the kid touches it, the first shot, Gwyneth Paltrow in the airport bar, the camera pans down to the peanuts she was just eating, and then it follows the cashier taking her credit card over to the thing. She touches it with her fingers.
I like the guy on the bus, too.
Yeah, shows
the guy that's coughing and like touching everything on his way off the bus and staggering around.
I think you probably noticed this. When that guy gets off the bus, they're like, get off the bus. Get off right now.
Yeah.
He gets off. They do this weird, like, Kubrick-esque, almost like in The Shining when Jack Torrance is, like, in the snow. Where, like, they zoom in on his like, hurting face, and he's just like, ugh.
Oh,
just
yeah.
And they zoom into it, and then, like, everything else in the background is just blown out, and the music goes, like, jazzy.
Oh.
Did you hear that?
No, I didn't
It gets
notice.
really minimal. All you hear is like these like hand percussion like drums and like a single horn bellowing, and it's like it has like this real noir moment. I was like, what is happening?
I did not notice that. Oh
Watch it
no.
again, it's
I need to
hilarious.
like rewind to that part and notice it. But yeah, I loved that. It kind of like those focusing on those little things kind of makes the it focuses on like the invisible
enemy
killer.
Yes.
Yeah, because this movie is sort of like a thriller, and it's not a monster, it's not a ghost, it's things you literally can't see.
It's sort of a thriller, but sometimes for me, those things took me out of it a little bit because it did feel kind of cheesy. Like they were trying to take, medical documents and make them as exciting as terrorists,
Right.
Or, the Russians or, whatever the usual
When is there medical
antagonists are.
documents?
No,
like the scene with the virus fitting into the cell and the key and everything. Like they're trying to take a biology lecture and turn it into James Bond.
He's essentially saying that this movie, or I don't know if this is what you're saying, but what I was going to say is that this movie is like a bunch of medical documents, or it's a medical study translated into like a Hollywood thriller with a lot of celebrities.
Yes.
It's a very clinical approach. It's like, this is what happens in a pandemic. We're not really caring about characters. We're not really caring about story arcs and motivations. We're just caring about, this is a sequence of events that occurs during a pandemic. Watch.
I would argue though that when they do get all jargony, they really compress it. Like when she's giving that lecture, she doesn't even take breaths between sentences. It's so fast. And same with the first instance of that, which is the guy who discovers how to build it, like how to grow it in the lab.
Yep.
He's on the phone and he says a bunch of jargon, and again it's this huge string, which I had to Google a bunch of stuff because some of the stuff is super cool. He says it's such and such kilobases long. I was like, what's a kilobase? I never heard of that unit.
They did a really good job of having whoever was being talked to or responding kind of summarize.
Right.
So everyone was kind of talking in complete sentences so that even if you knew absolutely nothing, like I already knew about the way that a virus attaches to a cell. But if you didn't know about that, that's fine. It's covered.
Yeah. But do you know what a kilobase is?
No, I don't know what a kilobase is.
So you know how DNA is like...
I just touched my face.
Oh.
No!
Stop touching your face. That was badass when Kate Winslet said that too.
And then she dies.
DNA is like in a strand of base pairs, right? So multiple base pairs. So a kilobase is a unit that is 1,000 base pairs long. So that's how you measure the length of a disease, or a virus. Isn't that sick?
That's really cool.
That's very cool.
I mean, I assumed
cool.
I assumed it was like a unit of length in something in the DNA.
Can I get back to stuff that's dumb?
Okay,
let's do it.
It feels like they were shooting out of order a little bit because there's scenes early in the movie where it makes sense, where people are all still like shaking hands and stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's a global pandemic. And there's some allusions made to, hey, don't touch your face, or like you shouldn't be touching hands and wear gloves and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And then towards the end of the movie, while the vaccine is like being rolled out, but hey, by the way, a vaccine is like not effective instantly. Like you should get injected with a vaccine. You should like chill for a couple days before you go and get somebody to cough on you. Where people are still just like shaking hands all over the place. And these are people who should really know better.
Right.
Yeah, there's specifically a scene where I forget which character it is. There's a character in an airport, and they're looking around, and this person observes two other people that are waiting in line to board a plane, and a person in the front of the line drops their passport, and the person behind them taps them on the shoulder, makes contact with them, and then picks up their passport and hands it to them. And these people have masks on. This is full-blown pandemic mode, and I didn't know
that's at the end of the movie.
Yeah. What are they trying to show? Are they trying to show how
there's still kindness?
There's still kindness, or people are still stupid?
Maybe
they're still touching each other?
I think a recurring theme throughout the whole movie is kind of drawing attention to the prevalence of these kind of interpersonal interactions, even when we don't really think about them. There is a lot of physical contact happening between strangers, even whether you would remember that or not. It's you touch a random person out in public. Later, it's hey, did you interact with anybody? He's oh, not really.
Yeah. When that guy's she touched my coffee cup. I might have touched it after. I don't remember.
Yeah, exactly. So it's getting people to think about how many things, you touch something, you put it down, somebody else picks it up. It's
Can you actually just face the other way right now?
Sorry.
Don't point that mouth at me.
Jeez Louise.
Back to things that are great then about the movie. I thought that was awesome. Mm-hmm. How the more things change, the more things stay absolutely the same.
Right.
So we've got all of these habits that people are trying to break. Don't touch your face, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, you've got lusty teenagers that are still just going to want to make out in the snow, regardless of whether it could kill one or both of them.
Right. The teenage angst, man.
I liked how...
You can't stop it.
I liked the boyfriend. I thought
what do you mean you liked him?
I thought he played the thirsty boyfriend.
Oh, sure.
Who actually is not
he's not an ass.
He's not an ass.
Yeah.
He's not just trying to lay the pipe, so to speak. To quote John Boyega.
Wow.
But he just wants to hang out with his girlfriend and no, really, I'm fine. He didn't seem to mean anything harmful by it.
Yeah.
Just a totally innocent guy. We also didn't get to see him just being annoying about it and sulky.
Right. Sorry, Mr. Imhoff.
Yeah, I thought he was totally believable.
I just want to see her. Yeah.
Totally believable.
Going back to the music, what'd you guys think of it?
It actually didn't bother me until the very end. The scene where it goes all the way back in time from wherever Gwyneth, I think it goes from her dying. No. It starts with the bat.
Yeah.
It starts with the bat just flying or something,
Well,
and then goes forward in time to the moment when she gets infected. And I just thought it was such a cheesy, silly answer to a question we didn't really need answered.
I was wondering why they put that on the end.
Yeah, because, it almost feels like a producer came in at the last second and was like, hey, you guys didn't explain where she got it.
I don't think it's like that. I think it's the intentions of the filmmaker being almost like a documentarian being this is what the movie's about. This is the lesson. Don't do it. We should be training for this right now.
The lesson
Stop this.
Yeah, but I don't think that's an honest ending. The honest to goodness ending might be that we actually don't know exactly who she got it from. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a little too neat, maybe.
Yeah,
because we find out exactly what happened to it. But
down to the bat.
The thing that I kind of took away from it that I didn't think was amazing either, but the thing that we may or may not meet. The filmmakers may or may not have meant for this to happen, but for me, the takeaway was this could have all been prevented if the chef washed his hands.
Yeah, I think
because it comes all the way back to that. It's okay, so that's the moment of transmission. I feel like if they cooked the pig, maybe.
Yeah, that might have helped.
That might have killed the virus,
they
right?
Eventually did cook the pig. It's just he has blood on his hands.
So that's the only point at which the virus, that's the point at which it entered the human population. So if he actually went and washed his hands instead of just wiped his hands, the pandemic would have been averted.
And to your point, Linus, the characters don't know the single bat. That's just the audience does. So I don't think it's that hokey.
Yeah, I still think it's hokey.
And also, we do know, we in real life, we know patient zero in some cases.
Okay, that's fair, but in this case, we wouldn't know to that level of certainty, and I thought it was okay to leave that uncertain. There's lots of other stuff they left uncertain.
Yeah, well, I feel like that is a movie that would have been better than this movie, where they care more about kind of making the audience really think about this stuff instead of just describing exactly what happened.
And now we've tied it up in this neat, tidy little bow. You're welcome.
Yeah. Then this amount of people got infected, and then they found the vaccine, and then they distributed the vaccine. And guess what? Turns out this is exactly how it happened. Now you know all the details. Close the paper.
Except what happened to the hostage. Except what happened with the hearing.
Wait, what hostage?
Cotillard, what did she do
Well, but that's the thing is that who really... I don't care what she does because she was barely in the movie. She was in like 3 scenes.
I don't think it's wrapped up well at all. Like, I think it's all messy. They have the vaccine now, but society is broken. It's going to take time to go back together. We don't
know if the vaccine's going to have terrible side effects.
This is as happy of an ending as you get in a movie like this.
I love that conspiracy theory guy gets off, though. I love that. That is so true to... When they just nailed him with the wiretapped investor guy,
right.
I was like, that's stupid. Those guys are... They're out there in the world that we live in now.
Yeah.
They're extremely difficult to get to stop spreading their nonsense that just is there for them to profit personally.
Who's the real threat? Bloggers. Watch out.
Hey, that guy had a camera too. He was vlogging.
Oh no.
Hey, how cool are those suits that they wear? They're so goofy. The first time one of those...
Which one?
Those BSL-4, they're called PPPS.
Oh, yeah.
Those positive pressure protective suits.
Right.
The first time one of those was on screen, I was like, what is that?
Worn by... I did like them, and I loved that... So Jennifer Ely is that's the actress who plays... Yeah, Hextall, who discovers the vaccine. But her partner, kind of in the lab...
The guy with the edgy haircut.
Is it?
Oh, that's kind of weird.
He's Dimitri Martin.
Oh, yeah.
He's a comedian.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
And I was like, oh, Dimitri Martin's in this movie? This is amazing. And he played a bit part. He was a very small role. But yeah, he was fine. But I just loved that his role in this movie is almost always in one of those goofy suits because that's like such his style.
Those suits are so cool, man.
Linus doesn't know. You don't know who this is. Dimitri Martin?
Nope.
If you know who he is in the comments...
What?
Shout out to Dimitri Martin.
It's very funny. Those suits, man. I did some research on like BSL-4 and BSL-3 and all this crap.
Right.
It stands for biosafety level. 4 is the highest. There's only like 15 labs like that in the U.S., I think. But BSL-3, there's like 1,500 of them.
Right.
And BSL-4, everything, basically all those ranks are just delineated based on the threat level of the virus you're doing.
Yeah.
So if it's like super contagious and super deadly and we don't have a vaccine for it, it's got to be in BSL-4. And in BSL-4, you're always wearing one of those suits. Those suits, speaking of realistic, one of the first scenes we see of those labs is the people aren't in the suits, actually. They're beside the suits, and they're pumping them with air, and they're checking them, because you need to check if there's any punctures in them.
Right.
Because they need to be like a total closed system, right? And the reason that there's air inside them it's not just so that you're breathing clean air. It's actually so that if it is punctured, there's positive pressure to blow the virus out.
Right.
One of the coolest things I've seen during the COVID-19 situation is a DIY like face sort of a positive pressure helmet that someone made. They're sitting, it's like, looks like a mother and her daughter sitting on a bus in China. And they've basically got it hooked up to a HEPA filter intake. And then it's pumping positive pressure into these plastic bags they're wearing on their heads. And then they've got like a rubber band around the top so that it all vents out the top. So they're breathing filtered air. And
wow.
I thought it was just like...
That's amazing.
Wow, because it looked like about $4 worth of, dining room table ingenuity. And I was like, oh yeah, that actually would work reasonably well compared to, these silly little, carpentry masks that people are trying to put on.
Which those don't actually, they're not supposed to prevent things from coming in.
No, all they do is prevent things from going out. So if you are sick, by all means, put one of those things on and GTF out of here. Yeah. But if you are not sick, you're just making a fashion statement.
No, I still think they're good because you're not supposed to touch your face, right? So if I'm not sick, I pick up the virus on a surface, and then I touch my face, you're going to be way more cognizant of your face touchings with that. And you're also not going to be able to touch your mouth.
For sure.
I guess that's fair.
And it's not an airborne illness anyway.
Well,
COVID?
I just read an article about this. It's not technically airborne, but the problem is that airborne is a definition that is like... The definition of that term is disputed by scientists. So
the little bits of saliva mist hanging in the air are kind of airborne for a bit.
For a bit, and it doesn't stay like perpetually. Whereas measles, you go into a elevator and then you leave, and somebody else goes in that same elevator.
Like an hour later, it'll just like hang in the air. But this is going to be a water droplet that shoot out of your mouth, and about 6 feet they hit the ground due to gravity.
When you said one of your favorite things you've seen in real life as like a protective measure, I thought you were going to talk about the water bottles people are putting on their heads.
No,
those are cool.
I haven't seen that one.
What, you haven't seen it?
No.
People are like taking like big giant water bottles and like cutting the ends off and just sticking those on their heads. I don't know how effective
Are they
that is.
actually filtering them?
Nope.
Or,
No, there's no
okay.
mechanism.
It's just a barrier.
Just
Yeah.
a barrier. Okay, cool. Well, that's something.
Hey, did you guys notice how many people in this movie were in Batman? There's 3.
Oh, yeah.
There's 3 actors in this movie who are also in the Batman saga.
I did
Chin
not.
Han.
Yeah, Chin Han, who's Mr. Lau, the guy who's really good at calculation in Dark Knight.
Right.
And then obviously Cotillard.
Yeah.
And then the third one is that journalist who didn't want anything to do with the Jude Law character. The actor's name is Monique Gabriela Kernan. And
Oh.
she plays Detective Ana Ramirez.
I didn't even have her on my cast list here.
Well,
Whoopsies.
your cast list is exclusive.
Okay, so what's the lasting legacy of this film, I feel like? Because I didn't love it so much because it didn't really like play to my preferences, like in terms of what I want to see in a movie. I like to see like a strong character arc. I like to see kind of like a aspirational element. It's like something to look up to. Like how do I behave? Show me someone. Show me a role model.
I think that's what
think
I'm
there
saying.
was a fair bit of that
I'm
in
saying
there.
that's what the goal of the final scene is showing you that transmission, patient 0 scene. I think that's what they wanted you to take away. That's what I'm saying.
But who's the what? Wash your hands. What's the
I mean,
takeaway?
that's not a terrible takeaway.
Yeah, sure.
Wash
but
your dang hands.
It's kind of crazy to have a whole movie with the final ending, final.
Well, no, I thought there were other messages
Message.
too. I thought there were messages like, hey, everything's kind of back to normal. It's not completely normal because that would be unrealistic. You know, we can only make so many million vaccines a day or whatever the case may be, but it's like normal-ish. It's a return to normalcy and return to normal, human interaction, even though it's still a dangerous world out there because
Right.
people are dumb and they're not really paying attention. And that passport now contains, what is it? MR1 or
MER.
MEV?
MEV or whatever.
MEV1.
Yeah, whatever the disease is called. I think the fact that there's no clean-cut, learnable outcome here is one of the strengths of the movie. Hey, it's this thing that happened, because that's what they were trying to do. They were kind of trying to do it as a fake documentary, right? Like, here's some stuff that went down. By the way, some people learned stuff and were really diligent, and other people didn't at all. They were just shopping. I mean, do you guys see the footage of the final day at Disneyland, the closing ceremony? People are packed in like sardines. They're like, oh, Disneyland's going to close down. Better get in a little bit more Disney before it's all closed down. Wait, you're not thinking about why it's closed down here, guys. Come on.
Sorry if you
Come
went to
on.
Disneyland, but
I actually
idiots.
just went to Disneyland,
Well, I mean,
but before that,
yeah, before
Yeah.
that. I think that is I agree with you that there are messages, there are takeaways from this movie,
but it's
I
just a
think-
boring movie.
Well,
You thought it was
I
boring?
don't think it's boring.
I watched it in 2 sessions.
I think what my main problem isn't that it's boring, is that it's flat. It's shallow. A lot of things happen. So I was never particularly bored while watching it, but the fulfillment that you get from having a lot of things happen that set things up to be fulfilled later, I didn't get that fulfillment.
Yeah, there's no real climax, is there?
No.
Well, not really. I mean, the moment when they figure out the vaccine.
Yeah, when she
could
makes
maybe
out
be
with
the
her
climax?
dad's, when she makes out with her dad's forehead and is like,
What the heck?
You know when
Because
she
he's
injects
infected.
herself, they had to reshoot that scene because when they originally shot it, she punctures the needle through her clothing and into her leg, which is a no-no that health practitioners know.
would they do-
So
yeah.
they reshot it.
Yeah, I appreciate all the accuracy in this film, but
I thought it was very stupid how she conducted a one-subject human trial on herself. I just want to go back to things that
Well,
were bad about the movie.
Yeah, but they're in
again.
crisis mode. They need to
Okay,
do whatever
so-
it takes.
Right, but that's not...
I thought
they,
that was
they
kinda
still
hokey.
would have had to do a full set of human trials other than on her.
they would.
what I'm trying to say.
They would, but and I heard somebody say that was dumb because that wouldn't really work properly. But the reason that she did it is because so she wouldn't have to get informed consent from potentially infected patients, right? So she did save some time there because they get the initial evidence that it works, and then they test it a bit, but they'll continue testing while they continue developing the vaccine.
Yeah, I
don't know.
guess.
I don't know.
I guess.
There's one scene where I sat there and thought, why did they show us that? There's a scene where Cotillard, right before she gets kidnapped, the dude says, my wife died, or my mom is passed now. She's in a mass grave.
Yeah.
And previously, when Cotillard's character found out that dude's mom was just sick, she was really empathetic.
Yeah,
she
and
was
then she's just like,
I'm
"Oh,
really sorry.
bummer."
And then when she finds out that the woman's dead, she's like,
She's like, tough beans.
sorry about that.
Yeah.
And then, but from there on, there's 40 seconds of her packing up her stuff.
Yeah.
And it just hangs, and you're just watching her pack up and walk out. And I'm like, why did they show us that? Why does it hang?
I think it's supposed to be suspenseful because I think we're supposed to know that something's afoot.
It's that, or It's probably that, I think, but
that's right before he kidnaps her.
Yeah, it's like the same scene almost. The other option I thought was maybe we're supposed to be thinking about how you get desensitized to stuff, and how like even someone who was empathetic before is now kind of just used to it and just, well, that's the way it is. Everyone's in mass graves
Numbers
now.
going up.
Yeah.
I thought it fell flat.
I feel like the movie would be better if you just take out her entire role, Marion Cotillard, and just like spend a bit more time with the other characters and like flesh them out.
Agree. If they had to cut any storyline, hers was the least useful.
Spend a lot more time with Jude Law.
No, that guy annoyed me. Kate Winslet was the best.
He annoyed you?
Yeah, Kate Winslet was great. Keep her alive a little longer.
Every scene that Jude Law was in, I was like, yes, give me more of this.
No.
But maybe it's because like I was just like, he's an actual character. Like he's interesting to watch. Like, yeah, you don't like him, but it's like, oh, this is interesting.
But
like,
he's one of the only
weird
characters,
accent.
He's one of the only characters in the movie that actually subverted my expectations. Like that interview with Lawrence Fishburne where he throws him the curveball live on TV.
Right.
That Lawrence Fishburne's character had tipped off his wife to leave the city, while Lawrence Fishburne is trying to,
downplay,
talk sense to the millions of Americans at home who are watching this broadcast and say like, hey, no, that knockoff serum health product, Forsythia, that's the one, that is not proven to do anything, and we need to wait until we have trials. Like, yes, it is very possible someone could get sick with MRV1 or whatever it's called, MEV, whatever. It's possible someone could get sick with this virus, take all this Forsythia, and live. But hey, there's also a 75% survival rate, so that doesn't mean that Forsythia is 75% effective.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened with his character. He was vlogging all sweaty with it, and he lives, but he could have just lived.
But he also never had it.
Well,
they tested him.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't have the antibodies.
He faked it.
That's right.
Yeah, he faked it. That's why I loved his character, because he's in there just having an agenda of some sort. Mm-hmm. Everyone else's agenda is so one-dimensional.
Yep.
It's just like, hey, I am trying to survive right now. I am trying to help people survive right now.
And his motivations...
That's basically it. Whereas his is like, yeah, I want to make some money, and I want to make everyone else look stupid, and I'm going to amass more followers. I'm going to build fame. I'm going to build money. I'm going to, draw other people in. I'm going to turn myself into like this. Because there's this illusion when he talks to the investor at the beginning. They allude to something that happened prior to the film where he anticipated some kind of, meteoric rise in some stock or something like that in the past. He's like, yeah, I'm going to turn into like a stock oracle. I'm going to be like a kingmaker, basically, was his agenda. He actually had somewhere that he was and somewhere he was trying to go and somewhere.
And they had those images of like profit posters of his face.
Yeah.
He's probably the one putting those up.
Yeah, exactly. I thought the exact same thing. I was like, did he put them up or did someone else? I just thought he was so interesting, and everyone else was just flat.
They
have a camera pointed
boring.
at them, and they're just whining about not being able to go out.
Not very many like character eccentricities, like especially the scientists. They're just kind of like, all right, do this, put another test. Oh, I did a test and we found this out.
Okay, I'll give you
send it
one
to the other person.
Nice touch on Kate Winslet's character.
She was good.
When she's dying, there's a guy in the bed next to her who's like, I'm so cold. Can you give me a blanket? We're out of blankets. Oh, can you turn the heat up? I'll look into it. And then she's dying, and her last thing is to like pull her jacket off her and try to throw it to his bed.
Right.
I actually thought that was overdone.
Dies.
I thought that was weak.
What?
Actually, on my first watch,
that was cool.
I didn't even get it. On my first viewing, I thought, oh, wow, that guy's really cold and she's really hot. Yeah, that's the fever, baby.
By your own admission, you were high.
She just dropped her jacket.
The second time watching it, I was like, oh, okay, that's what that means.
Yeah. Huge missed opportunity to continue her story arc. But I think that despite my misgivings with the lack of like character development in it, I do enjoy the movie as kind of like a clinical take on, like a clinical explanation of a pandemic. I think that I learned a lot from it. Like, especially given our current climate.
Yeah, given the current climate, I enjoyed it and was far more interested in it than I would otherwise be. Like I said, I had watched about 15 minutes of it over someone's shoulder on a plane, and it didn't draw me in enough to go seek it out and watch it. Whereas now, I was like, oh yeah, well, with all this going on, that seems like a pretty cool, Saturday night flick.
I would recommend if you think you can take the emotional toil of like watching something play out that is like very similar to what we're going through right now or what some people are going through, give it a watch.
And it's pretty hardcore, man. They cut open her head and peel her brain over, like her skin over her face while they're like dissecting her brain.
Lauren almost like quit halfway through. She's like, I don't want to watch this. I'm like, no, I got to finish it for the podcast. She's like, okay.
When the kid dies, they just show his face with like the foam on his mouth staining his mouth. Like,
yeah, no, it is pretty gruesome. I think that a lot of people like wouldn't actually want to watch this.
Shortly after that scene happened, I think my baby was crying or something like that, so I had to pause the movie and go upstairs and ripped. And I had to go into her crib and like adjust her and put her soother in her mouth and stuff. And I was just like,
checking for foam.
And I was just like, oh my God, this disease is out there and my baby exists and there's real life. Ah! It was very scary.
Every once in a while, actually, I shouldn't say every once in a while, about every other day as I go to bed, I go into my kids' room while they're sleeping and I just make sure they're all breathing.
You mean in general or during this pandemic?
In general, actually.
Dang.
Yeah, you guys should watch it. It's a good old time. What else you got to do while you're in quarantine? Other than message us at Carpool Critics Twitter. We want to do like a mailbag episode, so give us some wacky and highly personal questions for us to answer. That would be fun. And also,
really dig in.
You're not a Twitter person? You can email us, carpoolcriticspodcast@gmail.com.
I want to know what you think.
Oh, and subscribe if you're on YouTube. So
YouTube.
We've already made over $42.
Yes!
After monetizing our channel. Wow.
That could cover like 3 movie tickets, assuming the theaters were open, which they're not.
Oh yeah, the theaters are closed.
I can rent on Google Play.
That's as of I think yesterday.
I guess we're not doing. Although some of them are streaming. Some of the new movies are being streamed.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I didn't see that. Interesting.
Some of them, not all of them.
Those are gonna get pirated so fast.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. Well,
see you later.
Love you so much.
Yeah. Good show. Did I do okay?